Good morning, everybody. So this is going to be a long one. So you might want to grab a cup of tea or something and hang out. There's been a lot of questions about my deities, the ones that I work with, my views of them, how I work with them, and how I built those relationships. And so those are the things that I really want to kind of touch on today. Always know this is my view. This is my experiences, and they're not going to sound like a lot of others. At least that's what I keep hearing. When I talk about my deity with different people online and social media, when I talk to them at conferences and things of that nature, they always tell me that, they've never heard this before, or, they've never really looked at it this way. And so I think it's kind of important that we start talking about, all of us, start talking about our experiences, our true experiences, not what we're afraid to say because somebody else is going to say that doesn't go with lore, or that doesn't, that's not how I experience her. Every person's going to experience deity in the way that they need to for their path. That's my belief. We all have different lessons, different things that we need in order to grow. Thus, the deity that come in, the lessons that they give us, the things that we have to work through, that's going to look very individual for us. If it didn't, if it was just a cookie cutter, then would we really be growing as individuals? Probably not. We're probably just going to be, like a religion. And a religion and faith, separate things. And yes, I will probably be coughing through this here and there. The weather just took a big shift. We went from really hot and it's really cold this morning. So my sinuses are draining, and it's just what we do. So, first of all, I want to start with my view of deity. And this is from my experience. Deity are guides. And they're guides into certain patterns. So, all of your dark gods and goddesses are going to, be associated with all these little patterns, but they all come into a death pattern. And in all reality, it's the death and rebirth pattern, because almost all of the dark gods, almost, not all, almost, are all about transformation. And transformation is both sides of that. It's not just death itself. And all the ones that, follow all these fertility, creation, they're going to hang out in that creation side more. And that's going to be more their domain. And they'll have all these other little patterns in the web that they're connected to. And so for me, deity helps guide me through those patterns, to understand them, to go deeper into their concepts, and to see various perspectives of them. Deity is a guide. I will never ever bow down in a submissive way to a deity. I just don't think that's how it is. And I'm pretty sure the Morgan would kick my ass. Just being honest, big sovereignty goddess. So I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've talked to a few people this week about this, because it's been on my mind. We have so much Christian influence that sometimes I think we forget or don't see it in that way. So, and this is a really stark one when we talk about deity. The Christian mindset is bow down. It's you give physical offerings that cost you money and things like these are church concepts. And I know. I mean, the Catholic Church asks for 10% of everything you make. Most churches, you have to, give them a percentage of what you make. Why does God need money? God doesn't need money. The church needs money. Big difference. Okay. So if we're taking it into the concept of how we view deity. So a very church concept is bowing down, giving over in a way where our lives are not ours anymore, and in the way that everything we do is in service of them and never ourselves. These and even offerings. I mean, when we talk about, physical offerings of, putting an offering, of food out, or, something that isn't a service or something that isn't their domain, then I question, are we looking at that from a church standpoint, a Christian standpoint? Because in lore, and you'll hear this all over the place, that the gods were living. They walked among us. They were part of our daily lives. They, they were living physical beings around us, and we could encounter them at any point. That changes that perspective. It takes them from a bow down God to a living with that deity, that deity as a guide, that deity moving us and helping us to point out our flaws and the things that need to be changed, and point out different points of view and perspectives so we can grow and move forward. Okay. So that's my own personal. You can choose whatever. I'm not telling anybody's right or wrong. These are just the things I'm thinking about, and they're the things that I've worked with and the things that I've seen. It's fine. It's fine if we're different. It's fine if we disagree on these things. I hope you realize that. We don't need to be the same. And I'm just coming from it from a different perspective of what that looks like for me. And for me, I really do see a Christian influence in that bow down sort of way, with some of the things. And the thing is our community constantly tells people, this is how you do things, this is what you do. And we've got people so scared of doing the wrong thing that they're too scared to explore on their own, to go outside that box, or say, I'm just not connecting. This just doesn't feel right for me. And we need to stop. If something doesn't feel right, if it doesn't connect, if you don't, resonate with it, get out. Go do something different. Find a new way. Say, okay, so for me, offerings, putting offerings on an altar and things like that, I just, putting out food, putting out drinks. I'm pretty sure my ancestors would flip their freaking wigs, because they didn't have that. They didn't have the ability to have so much that they could just put it out and waste it in that way. And watch food rot. I just don't connect with that. That's fine if you do. It's great if you do. If you actually do, really love some of your input in the comments of what that means to you and what you get out of that kind of offering. And I'm not judgy here. I don't care. It doesn't affect my practice. And what I say shouldn't affect your practice. I'm just talking. But I would like to hear, your side of things and how you feel about that. So put them down below. We can talk. But for me, I do offerings in a different way. So when it's land spirits and deity that are very land connected, we give out food offerings to the animals on our property. So that looks like corn for the deers. Let's be honest, the deer get into just about everything. I've even seen them get into some meat, which is weird because they're not supposed to. But anyway, I put out offerings for our animals and stuff, and we generally do it, once or twice a week, and then once a month we do like a really big one. So I go and buy some fish and things like that, and we put it all out because I have ravens, I have turkey vultures, I have a couple of baby bald eagles now from the point. It's weird. They started hunting in the valley recently. We have a sharp-shinned hawk now. We have foxes. We have raccoons and possums and squirrels, just all kinds of different things that live here. And so we put out a variety of stuff. We put out fruits, we put out vegetables, we put out fish, and when they're really lucky, they get a pot roast. Yeah. Anyway, I do that because that is an offering to the sanctuary and the animals that make up our sanctuary in this area. We do specific things. We look at conservation of our land. So here we got about 3 acres or so, and most of it's wooded, and we're surrounded by heavy wooded area. And so we're always thinking about, the trees, conservation of soil, because we live in a valley. So literally we have a hill here, and then we have our valley here, and then another big hill over here. And so because we have this, because we sit on a water system, so we have a lake, we have a river that goes through, and from the hill behind us, we have a lot of natural springs that come through. So we also have to watch our springs, and soil erosion. We look at the plants that are growing in order to see, are there any that are endangered or few in the area? We want to make sure that we're really taking care of those and seeing how we can, do cuttings and things like that to propagate more. We're also looking at food sources for the animals when it comes to the trees and different things that we plant, because our area had been so heavily deforested and then it grew back, and there's a lot of things that are missing. Where a lot of our blackberry bushes are gone and things like that, and these were natural sources for our animals, and our animals are starting to look a little peaked and thin around here. And it's not just in our valley, I mean just in the area in general. And so, we think about these things, and, planting different fruit and nutrient bushes and things like that for the animals. That's one of the things I do. When it comes to my deity, specifically all of them, if I talk about them, I share my experiences, I share my stories, I share my things that go on with them, and I help other people. So when people will come to me and they'll ask me questions, or they'll maybe be stuck somewhere, or maybe they're not feeling it yet, whatever it is, I mentor people, I help people in that way, to connect. I try to do acts of service, because to me, it's our time and energy. In the end, the biggest sacrifice we can give anything, especially in our day and age, is our time. Our time and our energy. These are the two things that probably matter the most. So when you're thinking about, what do I need to give as an offering? What can I give it as an offering? Maybe consider thinking about it in the way of, the time and service. What's time and service you can give? That's in their domain. Okay, so the last part of my view on deity. If you look at history, and you look at lore, and you look at the animistic views and a lot of the indigenous views, of these deities and stuff, and you go back far enough, a lot of them, you will see that they were most likely a prominent figure within that area with those people. They lived at one point. They were on the land. They were people. They became gods because of the stories and the worship. And so their energy pattern after they died grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and became a god pattern. Is this true? Who knows? I'm not going to know until I die. You're not really going to know until you die how all of the death thing works. We have a lot of theories. We have a lot of speculation. We have a lot of thought. And then we also have examples. So whether it's all or whether it's just some that progress this way, this is how some progressed. And we need to recognize that they were people. And then they grew into a god pattern. This doesn't make them any less. I will never say I'm equal to any of my deity. I will never say that I am, know as much as they do. I know about this much, while they know about like this much. They have more connections on the web. They're connected to so many other things. They have so much different perspective and understanding and can see a whole lot more than we can. Our vision's super tiny compared to theirs. So I'm not belittling them. I'm not saying they're less than, because they're not. I'm just stating a progression. Okay, so with all of these ideas, I'm going to tell you who I work with, because everybody seems to be interested in that lately, about what deities I work with. And so I want to talk about that and what each relationship looks like, because each one is different. And then I want to talk about how I built them. So the deity that I work with are the Morrigan, Kari, and currently Hela. I've worked with all different kinds of deity. I've worked with several others in different modes. I tend to see that, you might have a core pantheon for yourself, a personal one. So these are the ones that are going to stay. They're your long-term ones. They're part of, your path all the way through. And then I have other ones that just come for a lesson. They just come in to teach me something. We have a good little time, and they're like, bye, I'm out. And that was hard at first, I'll admit, because I would just be so into them and the connection and be like, oh, this is wonderful. And then, it would be done, and then be like, okay, this is all I came for. I'm out. And I'm like, okay. And so with the Morrigan is my primary. She will always be there. There's just something about her that you can feel, and we've had a really long relationship. She's always going to be there. It's okay. She's my primary. The Morrigan is who I worked with to give me my structure, my foundations that I build everything on. She is my go-to for everything. As far as, if somebody comes in, I'm asking her, hey, what do you think about this? To get her opinion, because I want to know. If she's not down with it, then there might be something wrong. When I get a message from ancestors, when I was doing my bridge spell, there were certain parts I was like, this looks a little sketch. I don't know about this. And so I'd ask the Morrigan, and she was like, everything is great. Let's go do our job. I was like, okay, whatever. But I ask her, I consult her on those things. but yeah, she is my primary, and that for me means that I am deeply connected there. Um, you, I don't like titles like priestess and all that. She calls me seneschal. Down with that. And it's a partnership. So she really works on my self-growth, making sure I'm moving down my path and doing what I'm supposed to, and growing, and is real invested in that. Sovereignty. Huge in sovereignty with me. Her war aspect, her battle, it's really about the three sides of war. It's the guardianship, knowing what to guard, when to guard, how to guard. It's the battle, so conflict, any kind of conflict, and peace. So really it's like conflict resolution, in all reality. That's what it ends up being. Resolving those kinds of things, whether that is, an actual battle, or whether that is, just reconciling within ourselves. And her prophecy is very much about cycles and patterns and transformation. Really, all of her sides really live in the death rebirth pattern for me, and it's all transformation. Her shape shifting, all that, it's all transformation for me. And so she is my transformation deity. And all of the work that I do with her ends up in that way. Kari is interesting. I actually found him when I was doing genealogy. A friend of mine, she couldn't understand this until she did it herself. So everybody's got a royal line. This is my belief. Everybody's got some kind of royal line somewhere in their tree, if you can make it back to it. I have several and tons of bastard lines. I mean, please. They were royalty like way back when, and that didn't move forward with the rest of us. It's just not a thing. It's not a prestige thing to have a royal line, because I'm pretty sure everybody can find one. And so if you can find a royal line and you can get it go back far enough, eventually you will end up in mythology. Hence why I think, maybe a lot of our deity were living people that, we turned into gods. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't really matter where they come from, in my opinion. These were deity guides connected to these really large pattern concepts. Life, death, fertility, love, animals, land, water. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, and so I ended up finding Kari through genealogy, and I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, I wonder about that. And then it just kept coming, and he was just like very in my face. And so I was like, okay, fine. Problem is, the really only thing on him is his genealogy in the Orkney Island Edda pieces. So he's in the Orkney Island sagas, originally from Norway up the top of Scandinavia, Finland, up in that area. But no lore, no history, nothing but a wind god. And he had two brothers. One was associated with fire, and one was associated with the water. Okay. So how do you work with a deity that you know nothing about? That basically all you know is their name, and maybe an element they're associated with, or one aspect they're associated with. I use tarot, and I use trance work, and I asked questions. Tell me a story is the most fantastic thing you can do with your deity. If you work with tarot, I highly advise that you ask your deity, tell me a story. Say, tell me a story about this, tell me a story about yourself, tell me a story about whatever you want a story about. And then, you'll get better at it. But to start, draw like 4 to 6 cards, something like that, and see if they read a story. Mine always do. And it's spot on, and it's super clear, and they love telling stories. And I will tell you right now, the Morrigan, hilarious on stories. Absolutely love her stories. She is so funny. But anyway, that's how I had to work with Kari. I needed to get stories directly from him. I needed to know him directly from him. Because there was no other sources to ask. The beautiful thing about that is it gave me a way to connect with my other deities and the ones that come in for lessons and things like that. It allowed me to connect to them in a whole different way. Because instead of just going straight off of lore and things like that, and I have an issue when we come to following lore like it's gospel, and that happens in our community. I have a very different view on lore. We'll get into that later, probably next week or something. Sometime in the 88 days. But anyway, it gave me something more. I had already had that with the Morrigan because of the work that we had done and the conversations, but it did make it great to have these conversations in this way with her, letting her tell me stories about things, and it was just really fantastic. And when I connected with Ancestor, they took it a step farther and started giving instructions. So a lot of my spell work right now is being directed by Ancestor, and I'm just flowing, and it's great. It's wonderful things. Anyway, so with Kari, it was really about learning straight from him and understanding things straight from him. And the great thing is I have a wonderful friend that decided to do an experiment with Kari and start connecting. She was getting the same things I was without even knowing what I was getting. So for me, that was an outside check confirmation that the things that I was hearing, the things that I was getting, it's all good. That's him. He's doing his thing, and he's a wonderful God. I absolutely love him. He's got such an emotional presence, but he's very strong, very elemental. His thing is all about voice and music and arts and movement. He's a wonderful northern god. Problem is, it's not mine. My relationship with Morrigan is very much a service, very much a partnership, very much together. I feel her. She walks with me throughout my day. I have that presence of her, and I can reach out to her at any point. Kari, even though I can reach out and I can feel him and all these things, my work isn't there with him. My job, come to find out, was to learn about him and share him with others, because it's other people that need him. And it's really interesting because the friend that did the experiment is now becoming his priestess, because that's what he wanted. My job was to share, and that's it. That's all I get. There's no lessons, there's no work with him that I get to do. That's okay. We have great conversations anyway. It's all good. Hella is back. She just recently came back. And that's a whole other interesting story that I'll get into. But Hela is one. She is the Norse goddess Hel. And she is all about death. Now, I don't like calling her Hel, and to be honest, she doesn't seem to like it either. At least not from me. So I call her Hella. And that's how I work with her. We had done some lesson work before, a year or two ago. It's been a while. And she was there for quite some time. I had thought she was going to be a deity that was going to stay with me. One that was going to walk my journey with me like the Morrigan does. But, at the end when we were done working and stuff, she just kind of faded off. And I wasn't sure what that was about. And I was like, okay, well, that's really sad, but sure. I understand now in hindsight, she backed off and went back into the, the shadows and that kind of thing, because there were other things I needed to learn. There were aspects of duality I needed to learn this year. There were aspects of perspective, and obviously I needed to connect with ancestors and do a bridge spell. Because now we're all about death. Different mediumship skills and really kicking that up. And so, yeah. And so now she's back. And she's in full force and really visual this time. I mean, I'm getting signs from her everywhere. Even in my phone yesterday, I was sitting there talking to one of my witchy friends. And she is my ultimate. I love her. When we were just chatting yesterday morning, and in my phone, it's got all these little thumbprints and stuff, because I haven't cleaned the screen in a while, and the screen was black and the sun was coming up, so it was hitting it just right. And there was this skeleton, half kind of fleshy face and hair, and really weird hair, and a big dog just kind of in front of her and looking up at her. And I was like, oh, holy crap. And I had to take my phone to my husband and be like, oh my God, do you see this? And he saw it. He was like, oh yeah, I see it. And I was like, oh my God. So, yeah. I mean, she's just been very, very visual this time, which has been interesting. I get it because of where we're going. But Hella, again, very different. I experience her very different than a lot of the things that are put out there. It doesn't mean that her domain changes. Her domain is the same. The Morrigan's domain is the same. Curry's domain is the same, I guess, considering there really wasn't one. The domain, some of the core aspects are always there, but the actual workings, what we work on, how I see them, is a much more expanded view than what's there. It seems like what we have out there is about this much, while their actual self is like huge, way beyond that. So yeah, just something to keep in mind when you get messages and things, or you experience things that don't quite match up to the lore or whatever. Do we really think that they are only the lore? Do we really think that those are their only aspects, considering that they were written by Christian monks? I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not touching that today. Okay. So, we have gone through my view of deity. We have talked about the deity that I currently work with, and a little bit of what those relationships look like. And now I want to move into how I built those relationships. Because I know a lot of people have said, oh my God, your connection's so amazing. Oh my God, your work and how you hear them, and everything's so clear, and it's so spot on, and it's so amazing. That didn't happen overnight. I mean, everybody wants this quick fix of how to get to where I am with this, and I can't give that to them, because there isn't. It was a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of time. It was something. When I recognized the energy around me was the Morrigan, when I understood Some of the conversations I was having through my cards were her. When it finally sunk in and I was like, oh shit, okay. Okay, so I wanted that relationship. And so I carved out time and I made it a priority, not something to do on the fly, not something to fit into my day. It's my day needed to fit around this. And that's the mindset I went in with. And with the Morrigan, it was a lot of conversation through tarot, asking questions, doing shadow work with tarot, doing, getting lessons and working through them. So a lot of conversation with tarot. That went on for months. And I was doing all the work. Because if I didn't, she'd smack me down every time. So, and I'm not talking about, she comes out of nowhere and smacks me. But she throws it in your face. You know when you're not doing what you're supposed to, and she will put it right in your face and be like, I know too. And I know, and we're doing this now. It's okay. I kind of like that personality, so it really works for me. Me and her work really well together because we have very similar personalities and just being straightforward, blunt, honest, get it done. Okay. All right. So it was a lot of tarot work at first, and I used it for conversation. I didn't use it to find out my future or my level. I didn't. This is all spiritual. This is all about my connection with her, understanding me, getting me in a place where I could move forward. So a lot of that. Then it went to trance work. And trance work, and I give this to my mentees. I tell them all the time, and it works fabulous. I mean, the ones that have come back and actually told me about their experiences and stuff, and it's been a lot. It really works for them too. So I started, and I just tied 99 knots in a string. 99 is important. You need about 99, 100, because it's the repetition. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So I tied 99 knots in a string, and I wrote up a mantra, and it was specific between me and the Morrigan, and I wanted clear communication. I wanted to hear her. I wanted to be part of her energy. I wanted to walk with her. I wanted these things. And so I created a specific mantra that I would eventually memorize, and this is what I repeat. So you get in a quiet space, no distractions, no music, none of that. You can't have anything. It has to be silence. At least for me. And I really think when you're first starting out, it should be for everybody because we are so easily distracted. But you do you. You can try it. Go ahead. But I use the string as a counter, and each knot represented a time I would say the mantra. So 99 to 100 times saying the same mantra over and over and over. So the first time I did it, I was going through and reading my mantra as I was going through doing that. I am not a good memorizer. I don't memorize things well. My mantra was very long, but because of that repetition, I had it memorized really, really quick. And so once it was memorized, I closed my eyes in that same kind of quiet space and stuff, and I did my mantra. It took a little while, and I'm not talking a few days. I mean, I'm talking months before I really was able to control that trance state. And, I was getting little things here and there, and I was getting experiences, little experiences here and there. But it is nothing like the trance states that I get now. And I don't have to do this bead and mantra. I mean, the beads are to train your body to be distracted. The mantra is to distract your mind. So your soul side, your connection is allowed to build. That's what becomes in control at that point when you've distracted your body and your mind, your conscious mind. At least this is my theory on my experience. And so all of this is a training technique. That's why, at certain points, I would start feeling like I was getting farther from my body. And not in a sense of I could see everything, and it's not like astral projection. It's different. At least for me, it's different. And so I could see, I could feel myself getting farther. So my words were getting farther away from me. I could feel my mouth moving. I could hear the words, but it was like they were fading into the background. I started to lose awareness of my body in general, and going more into a state. It's not really blackness. It's not really mist. It's just kind of is. And in that state, I have visions, and we have conversation, and I'm given messages. And the cutesy thing is sometimes they give me cartoons and things like that. Little cartoon figures playing out a thing. It's like watching a movie, teaching me a lesson. It's not always, but it's fun when they do it. But this wasn't overnight. This was months and months and months and months and months of work. And every day, every single day I did this because I really wanted it. And so I really carved out that time and made the time to do this specific act in order to get that kind of communication. Now it's fantastic. Most of the time. Most of the time. I get messages when I'm just, sitting and hanging out, or, I was driving to the store the other day, and I got this heavy vision and message of, you need to go tell her to go work with the spider goddess. I was like, okay, who is that? But I don't question those kinds of things anymore. I have complete trust and faith in my deity, and so I went and I passed the message, and there she goes. She's working with the spider goddess now. It's pretty cool. But sometimes I'll get messages to pass. Sometimes I'll get things, hey, did we think about this today? Or, hey, we need to get this done. Or, have you looked at this? Or here's a different perspective of it. There's all kinds of things that I get. And I don't have to do all that kind of work anymore because I built that bond. I built that communication. I built that connection. I built that bond. And so now I don't just feel their energy around me, but I feel them, I hear them, I see them. If we're talking about vision and dream, I do not see my deity just walking around. To be quite honest, it's part of my problem with mediumship that I'm having, and one of the reasons why I think Hella is here is because the whole seeing thing freaks me the fuck. I'll just be honest. Hearing, vision, good in all those areas. Seeing, it kind of freaks me out. And that doesn't mean that that I don't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to, just because I have a fear or something, it's not going to stop me. I'm just being honest that I have a fear about it. But I'm still going to do it. It's okay. That's what courage is, baby. I don't really believe I have that much courage either. But it's just, it is what it is. I have built a lot of trust with my deity. I built a lot of trust with Hella when I worked with her before, and continue that now. I have complete, utter trust in the Morrigan. The Morrigan tells me something, there's no question. If my Ozark women ancestors tell me something, there's no question anymore. We've built that bond and we've built that trust. So even though I may not understand what we're doing, or I may not fully understand where this work or this path is going to lead me, I have complete faith and trust in my guides. I just do. And that has been built on experience. It has been built through all of our time together. So I won't question those things. I'm just going to do them. I may go kicking and screaming sometimes. I may stomp my little feet like a little girl and be like, I don't wanna. But we all know I'm gonna. We all know I'm gonna. Okay. So my thing that I hope you take away from this, and I know it's been really long and kind of just all over the place because I'm just rambling and talking. The things I hope you take away. Your relationship with deity or a guide is going to be personal for you. There may be core things, there may be aspects that mirror others, that are similar to others and things of that way, but how you experience that deity and what that relationship becomes is going to be very personal to you, your path, and why they're there. So don't be afraid to share your experiences. Don't be afraid. I mean, find safe spaces if you need to in order to do that. There are out there. You don't have to share them with everybody. Just share them with a few people. Or you can be bold. You can be bold and get out of the cookie cutter and decide that you're going to share the things that don't align with other people's. Your own personal experiences and what it means to you. I would wholeheartedly watch that. So if you're doing that, please put your name and where I can find you in the comments, because I would love to listen to your stories. I am so wanting to hear other people's stories on their experiences, not what somebody's told them and not, what they think they need to say. If you're being honest and you're being authentic, I want to hear, because I love that. I absolutely love seeing all the different ways that people connect with the Morrigan and what it means to them in their lives. And by sharing this, we allow others the space to get away from all the people that are trying to box it up and sell it and make it so they're the only voices and stuff. And we start actually sharing our goddesses and gods. We actually start giving them broader scope and more depth than all this surface stuff we have. So I hope you get that out of this. I hope you also understand that you may look at some of my stuff now. You may look at some of my writing, my stories, my things, my connections with my deity. And you need to understand this wasn't overnight. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of energy. I wanted it really bad, and so I committed myself to it, and I did it every single day. It is a hard commitment. Not lying. This 88 days is a hard commitment. When you commit to doing something every single day, knowing that our lives are crazy and things can come out of the woodworks and all that, but we're committed to this, yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. We can make an excuse and be like, oh, well, all these things came out of the woodwork today and I just can't. I couldn't do that. It didn't matter what happened that day. It didn't matter what struggle we were going through. It didn't matter, what tower crashed. I was doing that work. And that's not something she demanded of me. It's what I demanded of myself. Because it was important to me. I wanted that communication and I got it. I worked hard and I got it, and it is fantastic. And I would never, ever trade it for anything. Every ounce of work and sacrifice that I did to get here is worth every single moment. So, yeah. We look at these people and we see their stories and we see their connections and we see their abilities and we're like, oh, I really, really want that. And we live in an instant gratification society. So when it doesn't just start happening, we tend to lose interest and move off. I really think if you want deep connection, if you really want to build that deep bond and partnership with your deity, and it is a partnership, a back and forth, you've got to put in the effort. You've got to show them that you're willing to put in the effort, that this is important to you. I really think that is a part of it. Who knows, may not be, but I think it is. I think showing them is a part of it, because it's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment. And so, yeah. That's pretty much it. So, who are you working with? I'd love to know all the different people and the deities they're working with. We're not talking about traditions. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about deity. We're talking about guides. So what guides are you working with? What deity are you working with? What is that relationship like? Do you have different opinions on the things that I've said? Oh my God, please, yes, down in the comments. Let's talk. Let's have conversation. That's what I want. I am not here to tell you what to do or how to do it. I am just telling you what I did and my experiences and where that lies. And I talk about my own theories and I talk about my own thoughts. And because do we know 100% positive? Sure. For, say, do we know 100% positive sure that this piece of lore is the ultimate and it was written by the god? No, we really don't. We really don't. Will we know everything about death, no matter how many death deity we work with? We're not meant to learn. We're not meant to know everything. We need to know what we need to know to grow and keep going forward. And future's always static. It just depends on the choices we make. So yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested in who you're working with. I'm interested in the stories. I'm interested in what does that relationship look like for you. What are things that you do? Yeah. So let's share. Let's just start sharing these things. Stop being afraid of people, telling you that you're wrong or that that's not her or him or whatever. How we experience deity is how we're meant to experience deity. It is not going to look the same. And I've got your back. And I know a bunch of other people too that have got your back. Because we all want to start sharing this. We all are doing it in our own ways. So join us. Come on. Join the pack. All right. So I'm done. I'll let you go now. I've kept you for almost an hour. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you start some conversation with me because I would love to hear it. All right. Have a great one.